Removing a Japanese gel nail manicure doesn't have to be hard. Today I'll be showing you how to gently soak off a Japanese gel nail manicure with acetone, and I'll also be giving you some pointers if you're feeling brave to remove fully with an efile. You got this. Hey there, and welcome back to another Cocoas USA video. If you're new here, welcome. Cocoas Gel is soak-off gel made in Japan. My name is Paula and I'm happy to be a guest host here again in the Cocoas USA channel. Let's get into the studio. Alright, so to remove a Japanese gel nail manicure, first you'll have to remove what's on top of your manicure. In my case, I have some rhinestones, some Swarovski crystals that I would like to remove. So to do this, I'm going to need a tool, and that for me is my nail trimmer. So it looks like this, and these are actually not cuticle nippers, they are nail trimmers. So you want to start by removing the crystals and just be really careful that at no point you slide out and accidentally poke yourself or the client. Okay, so let's start there. I'm going to go ahead and clean these a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and remove right here. And as you can see, there's gel around these crystals, so you want to just kind of squeeze underneath like so. Okay, again, be really careful. Sometimes you can save these, sometimes you cannot. That should not be your goal when removing these. Do your best, especially maybe if your client wants to reuse them, but that should not be the goal. Okay, these are done as far as you are concerned. Okay, next thing, we have to smooth the nail out and trim it if we are going to. I'm going to leave the length of this nail as is, so there is no need to do that in my case. So I'm just going to go ahead and e-file this down smooth. Now, if you are uncomfortable or you're a beginner with an e-file, you don't have to e-file Japanese gel. That's not how you have to remove it. It is a soak-off product. So what you want to do is grab a coarse file, say a 150 or a 120 grit, and file this down smooth all the way until you can see the base coat, so that you can then do a soak-off. But if you're going to do your e-file, then you can just use your bits and your e-file to do so. Now, when you use the board file, you would file this super thin, and it's not enough just to break the seal as we used to like 10 years ago. Now you really have to come down all the way to the base coat. Okay, so because it's a little uneven, because this is where my gems were, I just want to file this down thin, or I should say smooth, before I bring my e-file. Alright, so now I see it's smooth. Remove the dust, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab a removal bit. Personally, I really like working with ceramic bits. Ceramics are these kind of bits. They'll be white, sometimes they'll be pink. They're kind of like glass. I mean, if you've dealt with, like, you know, ceramics in your kitchen, or maybe you are familiar because maybe you're an artist and you know what the material is, but sometimes you also use ceramics to sharpen knives. So it is a very sharp kind of glass material, and it just, I would say, conservatively shaves the product off. When you use a carbide or any metal bit, I actually don't even have one because I don't rely on it so much anymore, but something like this, right? And it's metal, but let's just say if it was like a barrel or something like this, a cone, right? Then these are fine, but I find that you have to switch over to a ceramic anyways. So it's up to you. You can start with this and then transition to this, or use this. And if you're going to do a soak-off regardless, it's okay if you do this until you see the base coat. Okay, you just have to be paying really good attention to make sure that you don't hit the natural nail at any point. However, if you're going to be doing even a soak-off removal, these are great because if they even touch the nail a little bit, it doesn't do as much shaving damage as this does. Think of this metal literally like a shaving blade. Like it will take off some nail with it very smoothly and almost painlessly, but you will feel it as soon as you put on another gel nail enhancement. You feel a heat spike, or obviously your nails won't be able to grow past your nail bed without breaking and bending, and that would be very painful. If you're DIYing or you're still getting comfortable with your efile, I like this. Again, I use these on myself just because I have more control. I won't nick myself, I won't overfile my nail or anything. I also like that with these, I can actually remove the entire gel from the surface of the nail. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and I won't be doing a soak off. All a soak off is you'll take a piece of cotton or a towelette of like this. You'll place this in an acetone pump. So you'll pump some acetone on here. This is a little thick, so you will do this here. You will soak this in acetone, place it just on the nail as much as possible so that you don't dehydrate your skin unnecessarily. And then take your clip and place that there. Or if you wanted to grab a piece of foil, you can do that too and wrap the finger. You want to make sure that these stay as tight as possible because acetone evaporates really fast. Okay, so you want to keep like a tight seal on this. When I do foils, I actually put plastic gloves on my foils. Okay, and I would only do a soak off on myself. I actually have not done soak off on my clients in years. And that's it. It will sit for 10 minutes. Sometimes a little bit longer. Sometimes you'll need to have the client warm up her hands before or during. So maybe putting a towel over her hands, because if the hands get cold and those nail bits get cold, this process, just like a refrigerator will do to anything, right? It will slow down the process of this removal. If the hands go cold, just like when you put things in the refrigerator and it slows down the process of, you know, spoilage, in this case removal, that's what's going to happen if your hands go cold. So very important to stay warm. All right, 10 minutes. You can then remove it and then see how much it's come off. You'll grab your cuticle pusher tool and remove the gel. That is it. But today we're doing a little bit more of an advanced method, and we're going to be doing the efile removal and reapplication. Now I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you where I would stop and how much I would remove if I'm going to rebalance this. So if I'm going to reapply the entire nail surface, I'll show you that, where I would stop and then just proceed as normal. And I'm also going to do a full soak off removal of this, okay? Because where I stop for reapplication is where I would stop for if I needed to remove this with acetone. So let's do this. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my efile. Again, I'm working on my nail, and I'm going to pretty much stay flat because this is a square nail, so this is comfortable for this nail. If I was wearing oval or round, I think doing this would be a little bit easier to get to the sidewalls, but let's see. All right, so here we are. This is what the nail looks like after I've removed most of the gel. The goal here is to file it down thin. I have done that. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and soak this off. So I only need a little bit of this towelette. So I'm just gonna grab some like this. And like so. And I'm gonna saturate that in my acetone solution. And I'm just gonna go ahead and clip it. And again, this amount of gel that I remove is the same amount that I would remove to rebalance the entire application. So this is gonna soak now for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna make sure that my hands stay nice and warm. All right, so now that 10 minutes have passed, let's check to see how this is doing. And as you can see, it is just crumbling up, which is exactly what we wanted to do. We've maintained the hands and this finger warm, so that this can be an easy breezy process. You want to remove as much of it as gentle as possible. before you reach for your tools. Now you do have to move a little bit quick because it will want to dry up. So just very gently letting the tool do the work for you. Go ahead and scrape the gel. And if you were doing this on yourself or a client who no longer wanted the product, then you would have to completely soak this off, which means you would reapply the acetone soak and wait another 5 minutes, okay? So that's all I want to do as far as pulling the gel. I don't want to force it off. Just gonna resaturate my little towelette for another 5 minutes and I'll come back to it. All right, so here we are 5 minutes later. Let's see how this is looking. And you would just repeat the process for this every time you still have gel that just does not budge. So this is why I do recommend that you get really comfortable with your efile so that you can move a little faster. Okay, so now I feel the gel gummy. I don't feel like I'm pulling at it or trying to scrape it off of the nail. It's just scraping the actual product. I'm actually just scraping the actual product, not the nail. And if you leave a teeny tiny amount of this and you blend that into the nail, it's not a crime, I promise. You will be okay, your client will be okay. It's actually better that you do. That way you have a buffer between your tool and the product itself. Yep, this feels all smooth. If there is any more left, I really am not bothered by it. So what I'm going to do now is I am just going to shape the nail to the shape that I like, which right now I'm wearing a rounded shape, so that's what I'm going to go for. Shorten it just a bit, that's why I'm sawing back and forth. And once I'm happy with that, maybe thin the fridge just a tiny bit to make sure it's smooth. I want to take the 100 grit side, use that for any gel left over, letting the buffer do the work for me before switching over to the 180 grit side, which is a little bit more gentle. The higher this number is, the more gentle. The lower that number is, the more coarse, and it should not be applied on the nail, the natural nail that is. Okay, taking the smoother side of my buffer. Okay, dusting it off. And do a wet dusting off, so I'm squeezed it into the alcohol. 90% is recommended when working with gels. All right, and there you are. You would then proceed to a manicure if that's what you're doing, or if you were going to rebalance it, then you would take care of your cuticle work and then proceed to your gel manicure application. Okay. All right, and that is how you remove a Japanese gel nail manicure. I hope you learned a bunch about how to remove a Japanese gel nail manicure. The big thing to keep in mind here is that generally the base layers of a Japanese gel manicure are a little thicker, and therefore to ensure a faster removal via soak-offs, you want to file the product down thin, especially if there is some builder gel involved. Now you don't have to soak off all the time. Cocoas is actually designed for you to make fills or rebalances every 2 to 3 weeks. And anything longer than that, you should remove via the tips and tricks shared in this video. We'll be back next week with another video. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell icon to be the first to be notified when our next episode drops. Drop your comments below and we'll see you there.